disputed that anyone was paid for their participation, and there's lots of news programs who refuse to pay participants for their interviews, but you do wonder, are there any actual legal limitations here, Elizabeth? What do you think?
Yeah, so that's true. So Netflix had come out and said nobody was paid for this documentary. That's the viewpoint. Like you said, there's many news organizations that refuse to pay for interviewees just because it kind of goes to the credibility of the news organization. I think there's a little bit of a fine line between, pure news coverage and long form documentaries. There are some entertainment companies and production companies out there that will pay interviewees depending on how much, or that will pay for access to certain materials, photos, videos, releases, things like that. But a lot of them don't, because as you said, it sort of goes to the issue of credibility. So here, Netflix is saying we did not pay anyone. And, we haven't really seen evidence put forward yet by Combs's team that they have. So, I think, again, it makes sense that they would try to use that argument. But again, even if some interviewees have been paid, I don't think that necessarily scrapes away at the integrity of the project. I think it's just case by case.
Yeah,
some companies pay for interviewees, some don't.
I agree.
Netflix is saying they didn't, so you kind of have to take what both sides are saying at face value.
Okay, let's go into the third argument. So the cease and desist letter's third argument arguably might be maybe its strongest. The claim that Netflix broke copyright laws by using media that didn't belong to them.
Hey, Missouri, are you ready to get your bet on? That's right, FanDuel is live right now. And from live betting to...
Quote, Netflix is poised to publish content, including intimate personal information, that it obtained in violation of the Copyright Act, Mr. Combs' privacy rights, and in breach of numerous non-disclosure, non-disparagement, and intellectual property agreements about which Netflix is or should be aware. For example, it appears that Netflix possesses and intends to rebroadcast portions of video recordings of Mr. Combs that are his property, but which employees and independent contractors illicitly disclosed to Netflix in violation of binding contractual prohibitions against such disclosure. By distributing video recordings exclusively owned by Mr. Combs and or entities owned or controlled by Mr. Combs without authorization, Netflix would be subject to liability for copyright infringement under the Copyright Act. Elizabeth, is there any grounds to this? Because let me tell you, copyright infringement, that's where the numbers can go up. That is where you can get into serious payments. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I agree this is probably their strongest argument they set forth. I was kind of surprised they didn't place it as sort of the first argument within the cease and desist, because usually the rule is for any motion or cease or desist or any legal document, you start out with the strongest argument first to kind of work your way down. But right, so that's the thing that they're claiming, is that this usage of the footage of him speaking to his attorneys, having these conversations, violated copyright, privacy, and also various agreements that they say the videographers had signed, NDAs, non-disparagement clauses, things like that. I think that's the strongest argument. And again,
most of his MBAs
it hasn't been proven who ultimately has the rights to this footage. I would venture to say that in most cases, if you are an individual employing a videographer to film yourself, the person who the videographer and the person who's filming.
But if he never paid them for their services,
that's how it usually works.
It's their property.
If Sean Combs does indeed have the rights to this footage,
let's be clear, he don't pay his bills. And if he didn't pay, sir, if you didn't pay for his services, it ain't your property. It's his until you pay your debt, until you pay him or her for the job that they did. This is what happens sometimes when you don't pay people their fees. Yeah, you can't talk that talk, and ain't shit you can do about it. It's their property. You didn't pay for it. Y'all, please double tap the face of your screen if you're listening in. If you're on your phone, if not, there are 3 dots at the top right. If you can hit those 3 dots for me and get the likes up for me, I will continue to play. I'll wait.
was obtained by people behind the documentary without the proper licenses, I think there could be a valid claim for copyright here. However, if it can be proven that, you know, the videographer obtained rights to this footage, if he obtained a license, he's able to transfer it over to the people behind the documentary, then I think a strong argument could be made in their favor as well. I think if this does play out and if there is litigation filed, I think it's going to come forward who ultimately has the rights to this video. Netflix keeps saying the video was submitted to them and they obtained it legally. So if that's the case, then is there again a license? Is there a release that was given to them by the videographer? We know it didn't come from Sean Combs, so I feel like that would be the only real scenario, is that somehow the videographer was able to obtain rights to it and then grant it over to them.
Well, look, Combs and his lawyers, they're demanding this entire series be wiped from the streaming service. Quote, to mitigate further damage and avoid legal action in connection with the concerns we've raised, Netflix must immediately withdraw the program. Prior to any future publication, Netflix must verify that each and every statement about Mr. Combs that it intends to publish is true and not made in violation of any contractual obligations or legal duties, must conduct a thorough investigation to determine whether it is in possession of the videos or any other unlawfully obtained media, must immediately return the videos or any other unlawfully obtained media to the undersigned counsel, and must immediately cease and desist from any use or dissemination of the foregoing content. Now, in a statement to Variety on Tuesday, a Netflix spokesperson said, quote, the project has no ties to any past conversations between Sean Combs and Netflix. The footage of Combs leading up to his indictment and arrest were legally obtained. This is not a hit piece or an act of retribution. Curtis Jackson is an executive producer, but does not have creative control. No one was paid to participate. Okay, we'll see where this goes. Elizabeth Vulai, thank you so much for taking the time. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that.
Okay, let's see what the old man said. I want to see, since one of them was the attorney. Oh, his daughter was. And then we'll get into the process of getting Trump out. Oh, let's show this one. Let's show this.
Planning to publish your book? You could reach 3 billion more readers. If you've written a book and you're thinking
in real time as new lawsuits dropped against him, Netflix making news this week with a new documentary featuring never-before-seen video of Sean Diddy Combs in moments that he clearly viewed as secret, including a high-stakes call with his lawyer just days before his now infamous arrest, plus Diddy reacting in real time as new lawsuits dropped against him. Combs has publicly objected that he says the videos were, quote, stolen.
I want to have a life to be able to live. You know, it's really going to be hard for me to take more hits than I take it, God forbid, get in front of a jury and have a chance. And so
you should have thought about that before you was drugging folk.
I've listened. I've been a superb client, as you said. I jumped on the plane. I'm coming to New York, but I'm just running around waiting for a shooter drop.
These new videos contribute to a critical portrait of Diddy in the documentary, which we can report tonight has now jumped to #1 for Netflix shows in the U.S. since debuting this week. Sean Combs' The Reckoning tackles Diddy's entire life, including previous legal controversies, the recent trial, which saw him acquitted on the most serious charges, including RICO, but convicted for prostitution crimes that landed him in prison for about 2 more years. Diddy's team is also
just like Epstein.
This project as a, quote, shameful hit piece. They note the obtained footage was not authorized for release. Netflix says they legally obtained
Oh, he looked drugged
videos.
out.
In addition, tonight, another dynamic here is that another famous rapper is, of course, behind this film, 50 Cent, who has long publicly clashed with Diddy and has recently expanded into a wide range of film and TV projects. He has plenty to say about Combs' record. The rapper, actor, and producer joins me now. He's sold over 30 million albums, won all kinds of awards and accolades along the way, and is now a successful film and TV producer. And we're also joined by his colleague on the project, Alexandria Stapleton, an Emmy-winning showrunner and director of this series. Welcome to both of you.
Oh man, thanks for having me.
Always great to have a 50-day.
Yeah, it's always going to be good. Great for ratings.
There we go. It's an important project, clearly. The question for both of you, 50 first, Why this project? Why now?
Well, we waited until after the results of the trial to release the project, but I started like almost 5 months before I was able to find Alex, and finding that Emmy Award-winning showrunner and director is detrimental to the project being really well put together. So, you know, they should expect it to perform like Reggie Jackson did.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the why it's coming out now is we wanted to wait, you know, to get through all of the legal proceedings, the criminal trial, and it spans, it's, you know, four parts, and it spans over 30 years of, you know, pop culture, his life. So it took some time, to say the least, to put all of this together.
It's an important story, and you could just tell it with all the public material. You go further, you've gotten your hands on some extra new material people are going to see for the first time, including this video. Any journalist would want to know how you got it, but it is Sean Diddy Combs in the heat of this, right before the arrest for the trial we just discussed, in private moments, talking to his lawyer, cameras running. Let's take a look.
It's the middle of September and there's still no indictment.
No, then you have to have a spokesman. You have to have some sort of comms to constantly be pushing that, Mark. Because you may just be a person that just does. You just may watch CNN. So you at the wrong place looking to see what the people with the possible jurors are thinking. It could be somebody that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business of media and propaganda.
50, how'd you get it, and what does that scene show?
Well, I mean, you know, you're a journalist, Harvey. Harvey, you would not disclose your sources.
We usually don't.
Yeah, but I got it. Yeah.
What he said.
He got it from I'll be sure got it from his son.
We see someone trying to pull the strings and talking about, he would say affecting, others would say manipulating the public views of the allegations.
I think that, you know, one big theme of the series is to go behind the scenes to really understand how brilliant you could say Sean Combs is at marketing, at owning his narrative, controlling the narrative at all times. And so why would that stop, you know, when his life is on the line? So I think that, you know, on its face, that's what it is. But as you get deeper in the film, you start to realize, you know, perhaps how some of these tactics, you know, how they really came to present themselves, you know, during the trial.
You show that, his abilities, his early rise. Alexandra, you also give time to victims of the alleged abuse. Some of the cases are in different procedural postures. And you show victims who were women and men. Why is that important?
Because, you know, victims of sexual assault, sexual violence, you know, that should... gender should not be a part of that conversation. When you are a victim, you are a victim. And I think that, you know, this series was a platform in a way for these alleged victims to come forward, give their truth, put context to their situations when so much of it was ripped out, you know, and we just went, the world was going for the salacious headlines, and they really had the time to tell their story.
Yeah, and the film takes us way behind the PR or propaganda machine. You see Diddy the day he's finding out about new suits against him while he's in New York preparing for a possible criminal arrest. This is another moment from the video that 50 said he won't tell us where he got it. But it's a rare window into his thinking. I can say, just like Nixon didn't think the Watergate tapes would come out against him, it would appear that Diddy did not think he would lose control of
and Trump didn't think those videos and stuff was gonna come out against him either.
I don't know what level of brokenness, disease is going on. God told me to do nothing, so I gotta do what God told me to do.
Oh Lord, they can sure put God in there, can't it? When they done got caught.
The girl that's in my group that was on my last album. You're on my last album now. All of a sudden, I'm this person. I'm this monster. That, man. Gloves coming off.
Alexandria, what is this show in the story you're telling?
Well, this is a moment where the lawsuits, I would say, take a turn and they become very personal for him. Don Richard is one of the alleged victims who filed a lawsuit, and I think that this is a moment where he was nicked. You know, his armor was nicked, I guess you could say, because I think, you know, Sean Combs is a person who probably feels like, you know, to step to him, especially legally, takes a lot of courage that I don't think he really assumed that a lot of people were going to have, even though the Cassie, you know, lawsuit had already been out. And so I think he was a little off balance, but that quickly turned to anger.
And 50, the project, I've seen all 4 episodes, it doesn't feel like a personality critique. It feels like it goes to the conduct, the alleged abuse, some of it alleged, some of it proven. And so you also show, one person who worked with Diddy, this was a Bad Boy co-founder who had a falling out with him, as apparently many people did. And it goes beyond the bravado. Some would say, 50, you have some bravado, and that's okay. Here, it seems that it turns into something more sinister and abusive. I want to play Mr. Burroughs talking about it and get your view of why this was an important part of the story. Take a look.
He had this thing with strongmen, and he had a thing with wanting to be one, but not positioned to be one street-wise, but positioned to be one industry-wise. And they call that a paper gangster.
No, I'm not paying, nor am I involved in any of that.
And so as he's paper gangstering, he's also trying to street gangster.
He was fired just 3 weeks before he was set to retire.
And now,
please double tap the face of your phone and get the lights up for me, please.
30 years.
This man was fired after 30 years of loyalty. Now he's a...
Yeah.
Double tap, double tap, double tap. A paper gangster.
Kurt Bowers has a lot of insight.
Diddy done got away with too much. He has a lot.
Being able to tell their truth or tell their version of the story, and the only thing I wish we were able to have Diddy be in the doc, so he could have said some things that make people understand why people are saying these things about him.
He said he know he was sick,
and they gave denials, but he didn't want to participate.
Yeah.
What do you think of the psychology, 50? Because in getting to know you, I've
he know he's sick.
learned that you could have been a full-time psychologist and done very well with that. You have a keen eye for people. Fair?
Oh yeah, I try.
Mr. Burroughs makes the argument that Diddy was overcompensating, that he wasn't initially actually a tough guy.
Right.
And then there's the old saying, be careful who you pretend to be, you might become them.
This is true.
Did that happen to him in your view?
I'm not sure if that's what transpired, but because I don't know him to be tough. Like we haven't even had problems. Like me and him. Like our issue, they'll say we had beef for 20 years, but I have had.
He ain't never stepped to you.
For different projects that I worked on, both 2 different television shows, Quincy and Justin.
Quincy is how he got some of this stuff, y'all.
Like have that energy towards him, like where
he killed his mama,
trying to hurt each other. All I would, like, while other people pointed out those situations, like that he was dangerous, like that, I said, oh, okay, I had to take it in, but we never got there.
Alexandria, the story also broadens well beyond the recent case. You look at a very controversial incident he was involved in early in his life, where people were badly hurt and killed, lost their life, but it was like a melee, not one-on-one violence. You look at the infamous case in the nightclub with J-Lo, where another artist shined, took the rap, not him. Are you trying to tell a story that he's been getting away with things the whole time?
He's been getting away with
it. The viewer to decide.
Absolutely up to the viewer. I think that my job was to show patterns, and my job was to report the facts and things that happened. And I think that it's pretty obvious that there are patterns that follow him, trails, of destruction and and devastation that follow. And I think that, again, context is everything. And so when you're talking about Sean Combs, when you're talking about these cases, you can't just cherry pick one to make it all make sense. You have to look at the piece as a whole.
Yeah. Now we have to talk about Tupac, which I wasn't committed to, but then I watched the doc. So
didn't know you were getting that.
You have a lot of people saying stuff in there that makes it sound like maybe he was responsible for that murder, which has never been proven. That's a very serious thing.
You have AunTeaFee D and over in Vegas now, getting ready to go on trial for that case, saying those things.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with his trial. I think right now it's up for August of 2026, and so it'll be very interesting. It was fascinating. We were getting that.
You have a lot of people saying stuff in there that makes it sound like maybe he was responsible for that murder, which has never been proven. That's a very serious thing.
You have AunTeaFee D and over in Vegas now, getting ready to go on
so
trial.
don't discredit it.
Saying those things.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
Keep
see
it
what
deep.
happens with his trial. I think right now it's up for August of 2026, and so it'll be very interesting. It was fascinating, though, to unearth, different people that are not in the direct line of, when all the Keefe news came out. Someone like Kirk Burroughs, you get to understand more of his opinion about what was going down. But I think more than just the actual murders and the tragic deaths of both Tupac and Biggie, I think that for us it was really important to understand some of the dynamics of those three, Sean Combs, Biggie, and Tupac, and what was really going on behind the scenes. That often gets lifted because everyone just wants to talk about, the murder, and not to really digest why.
But do you think a viewer's left with the impression that he was responsible?
I think that that's really up to the court system and not to me, or the film. We're just presenting, things that have been reported on, have been said by Keefe D, himself repeatedly, and the LAPD.
Show some love, brother love.
Go on.
I don't know. I'm just saying what Keefe was saying.
What he was saying, yeah. And yeah, you're speaking about a key person who some people would say, oh, that's strong evidence. Other people would say, when you get into years later and people with various agendas, you don't know. You have a juror in here. What did that show us about this case? Because there is a tension within all this. It's no stranger to many people that the justice system fails in all sorts of ways. You show how it failed.
50 Cent called Donald Trump and say don't
at the same time,
don't pardon him.
He beat the case in New York. I remember the day it happened, and I looked at 50's Instagram for Diddy News, as so many Americans do. And in all fairness, 50 said, okay, he beat a big part of the case, right? You said. Many people think that was an unjust outcome, but when talking to the jurors, what did you find? Because the film looks at all of this horror, but then finds that a jury of his peers in New York, ultimately in this era, said the government did not prove the whole RICO case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really complicated. And I think that to break down what went right and what maybe went left or wrong in that trial is that's a whole other documentary. But I think that, we have two jurors.
A whole nother documentary.
Of New Yorkers, that were interviewed in the film. And I think that when you talk to them, I mean, it was very clear to me that they stood behind that decision. They stood behind it 1,000%. Because they felt that based on the charges that were presented by the federal government, and that they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sean Combs was guilty of, RICO.
That they overcharged.
That they overcharged. I think that when you get into the, I don't know if our laws or our legal system are the best when it comes to the gray matter of sexual assault.
They had tanks out in front of his house. Like they need a bigger more extreme approach to the investigation.
So you think the government did basically
They did
mishandle
overdo
what
it.
was still strong evidence?
They did overdo it. And
Overdid it.
He did great. He beat the case. To me, that what he was charged with, that's a victory. Like that, to end up with 50 months when you had when your life on the line is a victory. You know, but to be the only person that's incarcerated for hiring and transporting male prostitutes is different.
Yeah, life on the line, also a 50 litter. It is. When he comes out, and it's not that long from now, he re-enters this world. He's got a stack of civil cases that could bankrupt even the wealthiest people, and you give voice to some of those accusers and individuals. What do you think the future should hold for Diddy? Should he be, sort of re-embraced or not?
I don't know if he. I don't know why he didn't file bankruptcy. Like it would have indicated to the sharks that even if you see blood in the water, there's not that much blood, right? Because the lawyers, they came with so many lawsuits. It's like 80 different civil suits. So
he should have filed bankruptcy. Is what he's saying.
That is going to exhaust him. The legal process is exhausting.
I think he also underestimated that a lot. I mean, some of, with every celebrity, you do have different claims and some are completely unfounded. But I think that some of these lawsuits, there's receipts and there's footage and there's voice recordings. And I think that for a man, it's also very interesting, for the culture of hip hop, so many artists record themselves and they probably, when they were, recording themselves in 2005, never saw the year 2025 and how accessible that media would be to actually make a case for things. And I think that's a big part of the gumbo of Sean Combs and what he's dealing with.
Thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Ooh-wee. Y'all ready to talk about or listen to the impeachment process? Let's see what type of trouble Trump and Pete. They done impeach process on Pete as well. Let me hear Larry O'Donnell before we go into this. Please double tap the face
First,
of the phone.
That's what has happened in the American military after every war crime. First, they lie. That's what has happened in the American military after every war crime committed by the American military. First, they lie. Somewhere in the chain of command, they lie. That is what Donald Trump's incompetent Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, did when first confronted with the Washington Post breaking news report of a second missile strike on a small boat that had already been destroyed and burst into flames. Every war crime committed by the American military.
First they lie.
They lie. Somewhere in the chain of command, they lie. That is what Donald Trump's incompetent Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth,
hey, Janet,
when first confronted with the Washington Post breaking news report of a second missile strike on a small boat that had already been destroyed and burst into flames after the first missile strike. The Washington Post reported that the second missile strike killed 2 people clinging to the wreckage, which would be a war crime in a war and is murder outside of war. There is no war in the Caribbean. There is no fog of war there. So Pete Hegseth lied and said that everything in the Washington Post article was, quote, the fake news delivering more fabricated, inflammatory, and derogatory reporting. That was Pete Hegseth's first lie about this story as soon as it came out. Pete Hegseth himself has already turned himself in for lying about that, for telling that lie, since he has changed his story multiple times since he told that lie on Sunday. In Vietnam, the worst military war crime of the 20th century. Pete Hegseth himself.
Did he say turned himself in? Did y'all hear him say Pete turned himself in? What that mean?
That was Pete Hegseth's first lie about this story as soon as it came out. Pete Hegseth himself has already turned himself in for lying about that, for telling that lie, since he has changed his story multiple times, since he told that lie on Sunday. In Vietnam, the worst American military war crime of the 20th century was called a resounding success. Those are the words, resounding success, in the first after-action report of what came to be known as the My Lai Massacre, in which American soldiers commanded by Lieutenant William Calley summarily executed 347 people. And first, they lied. But 18 months later, Lieutenant Calley was finally charged with personally murdering 109 civilians. Babies, grandmothers, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. When one of the soldiers Lieutenant Calley ordered to murder people refused to do it, Lieutenant Calley took that soldier's rifle and shot them himself. But first they lied. The American military never wanted us to know that story. And when the suspicions built about a possible war crime, the lying sisters, mothers, fathers. When one of the soldiers Lieutenant Calley ordered to murder people refused to do it, Lieutenant Calley took that soldier's rifle and shot them himself. But first they lied. The American military never wanted us to know that story. And when the suspicions
impeachment
built about a possible war crime,
they started the impeachment
the lying
process.
didn't stop immediately. The lying does not stop immediately in these cases. But based on the American military's history of lying about war crimes, the American military has earned exactly zero credibility to any defense or offered about a possible war crime if that defense does not include evidence. And that's for war crimes. What about crimes committed outside of war? Brian Goodman is now a professor of law at NYU who served as a legal counsel in the Pentagon in 2015 and 2016. He told the New York Times today, focusing on the shipwrecked is a distraction insofar as it suggests everything else preceding and after that strike was all legitimate. Even under a law of armed conflict, they were all civilians, and we are not actually in armed conflict either way. It was all murder.
Wow.
All murder.
All murder. Oh, wow.
That is the considered opinion of a legal expert on this matter. Today, the admiral in command of the mission met privately with the Republican and Democratic leaders of the House and Senate committees with some jurisdiction over this matter. House and Senate Armed Services Committee, the House and Senate Intelligence Committee, the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, including the Appropriations Subcommittees on Defense. Of the 6 Republicans who were offered that briefing today, only one of them stepped up to a microphone afterwards to offer what he saw in the video